An enterprise cloud drive drains into an unauthorized server. Proprietary source code, financial models, and internal communications leave the corporate network at maximum bandwidth. The attacker now holds a perfect mirror of the victim's data. Every existing file has been exfiltrated, and every future document saved to this drive will automatically synchronize to the adversary's machine in real time. No passwords were compromised to execute this extraction, no multi-factor authentication prompts were sent to the user, and no phishing links were clicked. Inside the Security Operations Center, the dashboards remain green. No anomalous login alerts fired. The Enterprise Identity Management System recorded 0 failed authentication attempts. The attacker bypassed the entire authentication perimeter by stealing a single, locally stored sync token. Against this specific exploit, traditional identity controls provide absolutely 0 friction. To avoid constant password prompts, the client application authenticates once, receiving a long-lived OAuth refresh token. To maintain persistence, it writes this privileged token to a local database. The client then presents this token to the Cloud API for continuous synchronization, permanently bypassing the identity verification gate. That local storage creates a structural vulnerability. The token is inherently portable. It is a string of text that carries the full authorization weight of the authenticated user, independent of the physical machine. An adversary does not need to compromise the cloud provider. They only need to locate and extract this local database file from the endpoint. Once the adversary drops that stolen token into a matching sync client on their own hardware, the cloud provider's API cannot distinguish between the legitimate user's laptop and the attacker's server. In modern OAuth architectures, possessing the token is identical to possessing the data. Identity verification is entirely removed from the equation. This methodology is formally classified under MITRE ATTK Technique T1528, Steal Application Access Token. Step 1 requires initial endpoint access. The adversary deploys malware or utilizes brief physical access to an unlocked workstation to reach the local file system. Step 2 is token theft. For Dropbox environments, the attacker queries the app data directory and copies the database file containing the active OAuth token. For Microsoft OneDrive, the target shifts to the registry, specifically extracting the token directly from the Windows Credential Manager. And for Google Drive, the adversary pulls the token from the DriveFS directory inside the local application data folder. Step 3 is token injection. The attacker installs the stolen token into a blank sync client on their own machine and initiates a connection to the cloud provider. This establishes immediate, authenticated access. The client triggers a massive synchronization event, pulling the entire corporate drive structure down to the adversary's local disk. Because the session is utilizing an already validated refresh token, the cloud provider never issues a multi-factor authentication challenge. Step 4 secures persistence. The attacker can now move laterally in reverse. By dropping malicious payloads into their local sync folder, the cloud provider will automatically push those infected files down to the victim's legitimate machine. Step 5 is ghosting. The adversary replaces the original token database on the victim's machine, effectively wiping any local evidence that the file was ever locked or accessed by a third party. Throughout this entire sequence, the organization's authentication logs remain perfectly sterile. There are no failed logins to trigger a SOC alert. By weaponizing the native synchronization protocol, Technique T1528 operates inside a structural blind spot that perimeter-based SIEM solutions cannot monitor. Defending against a threat that generates no authentication logs requires shifting telemetry away from the login gate and toward post-authentication behavior. First, security teams must aggregate and monitor sync client activity logs. A valid token initiating a sync request from an anomalous geographic location or an unrecognized device fingerprint is the primary indicator of compromise. Second, administrators must compress the token lifecycle. Enforcing strict rotation policies and configuring OAuth tokens with short-lived expiration windows mathematically reduces the time frame an attacker has to utilize a stolen database. Third, organizations must implement conditional access. By enforcing device trust, the provider rejects any valid token if the request originates from hardware not registered and managed by the corporate IT department. Defeating man-in-the-cloud attacks demands abandoning reliance on passwords and MFA, and instead strictly binding token validity to cryptographic device trust. Securing the token is only the technical half of cloud architecture. When that data leaves the endpoint and synchronizes to the provider, it immediately collides with the legal realities of global jurisdiction. Storing data in a specific physical data center, like an AWS facility in Mumbai, does not restrict legal authority to that single geographic region. Cloud data is simultaneously governed by 4 overlapping jurisdictions: the physical location of the server, the legal headquarters of the cloud provider, the incorporation state of the organization storing the data, and the geographic location of the specific user. This creates severe, direct conflicts between sovereign nations. The United States Cloud Act of 2018 established a massive extraterritorial mandate. The Cloud Act grants U.S. law enforcement the authority to compel American cloud providers to hand over requested data, regardless of where in the world those servers are physically located. Local governments respond by erecting legal firewalls. Under India's Digital Personal Data Protection Act of 2023, data principals are granted strict rights over their personal data, heavily restricting how it is processed. The DPDP Act asserts sovereignty over Indian citizen data, explicitly challenging the extraterritorial access claims made by foreign intelligence and law enforcement agencies. Sector-specific regulators take this localization even further. The Reserve Bank of India mandates that data related to payment systems must be stored exclusively on servers physically located with Indian borders. Cloud providers and enterprise organizations are trapped in an impossible paradox. They are legally mandated by one government to provide global data access, while being legally mandated by another to guarantee strict, localized data sovereignty. Cloud architecture requires navigating a fundamentally hostile, contradictory global legal framework, where compliance with one nation often ensures the violation of another. These jurisdictional mandates frequently require organizations to delete data upon user request, but in a distributed cloud environment, physical deletion is a technical impossibility. Executing a delete command on a cloud platform removes the pointer to the file, but it does not overwrite the physical blocks of data residing on the storage drives. To guarantee uptime, cloud providers architect heavy replication. Uploaded files are duplicated across geographic availability zones. Even if the primary file is deleted, cached copies at edge nodes and automated rolling backups retain the residual data indefinitely. The only mathematically sound method to destroy data across a massive multi-tenant architecture is cryptographic erasure. Instead of wiping every physical copy, you encrypt the primary payload with a unique key. When a deletion request is issued, you simply destroy that key. The scattered storage blocks remain, but without the key, those residual copies are computationally irretrievable. In a massively distributed system, you cannot destroy the physical data. You can only permanently destroy access to it. A man-in-the-cloud attack utilizes a single, unassuming text file to bypass the entire modern security perimeter. It bypasses passwords, defeats multi-factor authentication, and operates below the threshold of CM detection. It exploits the foundational architectural trade-off of the cloud, prioritizing continuous user convenience over strict per-session identity verification. The moment that data is exfiltrated, or even just synchronized, the organization immediately runs headlong into the severe conflicting legal frameworks that govern global data sovereignty. True cloud security requires a practitioner to master the technical mechanics of the exploit, the legal mandates of the jurisdiction, and the operational reality of distributed storage simultaneously. In modern cloud environments, an absence of alerts does not mean an absence of adversaries. Securing the perimeter is impossible. You must operate on the assumption that the breach has already occurred.